at Walter Reed to take a postdoctoral fellowship where I did research based on genetic predisposition to malaria in Kisumu. I worked at Kisumu for 1 year, and I was able to serve well and also offered a short training on molecular parasitology in the US that I quickly finished. And I went back to the university for teaching. And so in 2008, I was then promoted to the position of a lecturer, a position I diligently served and was given an opportunity to serve as chair of Department of Biochemistry in 2011, which I quietly took and with diligence was able to bring in new programs to my department. I did bring down my team, and through my leadership skills, we were able to look through our programs, develop new ones, including a program for the African students in the Pausti University. By 2013, I was able to rise to become a senior lecturer. And again, I was much involved in research work. At that point, I was able to attract various grants, locally and otherwise, and also able to put down publications, supervise students, and apply for a patent based on my work. Chair, by 2016, the first dean for the School of Biomedical Sciences that had been created then was open. I competed against other professors and doctorates in the university, and I was elected the first elected dean in the School of Biomedical Sciences in the College of Health Sciences of JKU Art. Chair, before I settled, and when I was finishing my first term, I was again offered a position. But at that point, I need to note that as a senior lecturer, I was able to perform in research and community service. As a dean, I was also able to serve well in training and leadership. But 2017 came with its own supplies because I was given an offer to serve as a county executive member for education, gender and culture, social services in the county government of Kiambu. So I joined an environment that was very challenging, away from an environment where students would listen to me and give me an opportunity. I was in an environment where I had to quickly look at the needs of the political class, the needs of the populace, and my position. At that point, I quickly did an analysis, Madam Chair, not a SWOT or PESTER analysis, but I did an analysis to find out what I quickly needed to do in order to survive in such an environment. And I was able to identify 3 key areas. The first one was on the socio-political environment, simply because the members of the county assembly then were agitated that there were no bursaries that were being offered. And that had not even happened in 2016. And they couldn't see a hope in 2017. So I had to find out why that had not happened, and I had to look at the needs of the members of the county assembly, keep it at balance with the expectation of my appointing authority, who is the governor, and be able to see what to do. The second area I looked into was the corporate governance of my department, my sector. And I realized that I quickly needed to split one of the directorates, especially the Directorate of Gender, Culture and Social Services, to separate out social services that was then engaged in bursary provision from gender and culture, so that I was able to then inculcate the spirit of gender equality within the county government of Kiambu. The third area was the legal framework governing my position, and I realized that one of the key weaknesses of the bursary process was a provision that had been brought in through an amendment in 2016 that seemed to offend the regulations of the PFM Act 2012 and brought in a clause introducing 5% as administrative figure, whereas in the county government regulations, they do not expect you to put in more than 3%. On realizing that and coming from a naive of an environment of registration, I quickly put down my team. I was taken through briefly on how to champion registration, and we were able to put down an amendment that was able to downsize that 5% to 3%. And Honorable Chair, By March, April of 2018, I had already been able to unlock the process. The bus reforms were issued, and we were able to mobilize the first 120 million. Of course, there were other areas in the legal framework, especially the securance of a fund that then was called Biashara Fund. There was a need, and my governor was insisting that we should secure such money, because we realized that the monies given earlier on were not secured, and the county had lost a lot of money. That I did go down to it, but before then, my additional responsibilities were shifted to a new CEC, and therefore I only played a role at the inception of the then creation of a Jijenge Fund, then to be called. Chair, in the county government, I did play a lot of role, attending to meetings called by the Council of Governors and delivering the point to my appointing authority. I did play a role as CEC as a focal point of all decisions in the department, and at the CEC committee, where as a member you collectively are responsible to the governor for the functions of the committee, and at the same time you have to balance with the needs of your department, and occasionally being called by the county assembly to answer to pertinent questions. Honorable Chair, towards 2020, and after the invocation of Section 179(7) of the Constitution, I had to go back to Jomo Kenyatta. And on going back to Jomo Kenyatta University, I quickly then was able to fight back my niche. And since in the course of my stay out, I was still doing my role of supervision and advocacy for research, because I already had running grants, I did come back and look at what I ought to do. And so I remember one day I called my members of research teams. And this is a coronavirus. I was telling them, we need to quickly be proactive, put down something for coronavirus and see whether we can bring a solution to this problem. We did meet with members from Kenya Medical Research Institute, members from Technical University, members from Mount Kenya University, Karatina University, and others, and we were able to put down the proposal, which, Chair, I can gladly report here that proposal has been awarded 50 million towards corona research. And so, Chair, my long list of experience has made me come this far. And Chair, before I conclude, I need to bring to your attention that my university, my employer, having realized and seen me through all this achievement, called me for an interview last week for the position of associate professor. So on Wednesday last week, I was interviewed, and I can gladly report that as I was walking in here, I met my chairman of council, who whispered and said, "Don't worry, Joseph, all is well for last week." So, Chair, I'm happy that all this has been crowned by the university. Chair, it would be unfair for me to have achieved all this and not given back to the society. Over time, I have been a member of school boards. One school, we already started it from scratch, and it's now a school that is admitting over 500 students. I've been a member of a board of a national school, Loreto Limuru Girls. I always like to advocate for the gender equality. I've also, back to my community, offered a service giving a solution of a water problem in Juja constituency since 2005 until today. Chair, I owe all this to Almighty God and the providence of the people that have supported me. To this end, I wish to thank you and the committee for giving me an opportunity to appear for this. May I ask you, Chair, please, that I give more under your guidance.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nganga. Allow me to ask you for some clarification from your CV, where you listed your administrative experience. You did mention that indeed you are the CEC for Education, Culture, Gender and Social Services, Kiambu County, from December 2017 to 2020. You thereafter also list that you are CEC for the same docket with the addition of Youth and Sports Kiambu County, December 2018 to 2019. So it's within the same period. Maybe you can clarify to us why you divided that into two.
Madam Chair, it's normally the prerogative of the governor of a county and the CCM to structure the government. And so towards 2018, there was a department that was left vacant after the exit of the then CEC for sports. And therefore, through an additional mandate, which I attached on my documents, you will see that I got an additional mandate to now run 2 departments. The Department of Education, Gender, Culture and Social Services, and the Department of Youth and Sports. And this is why you see me dubbing as a CEC for the 2 sectors.
Thank you so much for that clarification. Are you a registered voter?
Yes, Madam, I am.
And where did you vote in the last election?
I have always voted, and last time I voted at the Chiefs Camp in Muigain, Karimoni Ward, Juja constituency.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nganga. I'll now request Dr. Morris Kimuli to ask you a few questions.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Daktari,
Yes, Dr.
I will ask you a few questions. The intention is to design your understanding of the general law that governs electoral matters. I understand you're not a lawyer, so you may not know the specifics. Let us deal with political parties. If you register a political party, it's a vehicle for our elections. What considerations should you have when you are deciding the name? And I'm looking at Section 8 of the Political Parties Act.
Thank you.
What's in a name for a political party, or what's not in a name for a political party?
Briefly, what I know of a political party, it should disengage itself from affiliation to a religious body. And therefore, I wouldn't register a political party with a name that affiliates it to a given faith. I also wouldn't orient it towards a given culture so that it's not giving that division. I would also not give it a name that divides Kenyans along tribal lines. So I would also give it a name that more or less abbreviates a political philosophy of the party than other elements that may bring in divisive politics.
Okay, when you look at Section 8, you cannot have a political party that has a name that is obscene or offensive, a name or abbreviations that mirror an existing political party, or a name that nearly resembles the symbol of another existing political party. Perhaps this is something you need to look at. Now, you know that in Kenya, we have had coalitions before and after elections. And coalitions are also vehicles in our elections. Is that so?
Yes, sir.
Do you know how coalitions are formed by law?
Yeah,
if you want to form a coalition, what you would need to do?
What I know, sir, is that coalitions can either be formed before an election, that's a general election, or after a general election. Mm-hmm. The way I find coalitions formed in Kenya, they are formed to advance a certain philosophy mm-hmm. with a name of mobilizing the Kenyan populace to vote. So for the coalitions to be formed, they, one, must be from registered political parties that adhere to all the regulations of the Political Party Act. These political parties have to register the coalition with the registrar of political parties. And that has to happen either before the elections or after the elections.
Do you know if you have a coalition, and the way you form a coalition is through a coalition agreement, perhaps that should jog your memory, you enter into a coalition agreement. Now, if you have that agreement before an election, do you know within what timelines you should file it with the registrar of political parties?
I'm not very sure, sir, but I would presume it's like 60 days before.
It's 3 months before. And what if you form a coalition after the election? You're supposed to deposit the coalition agreement with the registrar of political parties. you may not also be sure of the timelines applicable?
I do not want to get into wild goose guessing, but again, I would restrict myself to the usual 30 days for that purpose, because it comes in very early after the election has been declared and gazetted.
Well, you may need to look at the Political Parties Act, because the answer is there. Now, the Constitution under Article 91 says that political parties must have a national character. What do you understand by that?
If I may look at the requirements of, for example, a presidential candidate, he requires to have garnered at least 25% from a majority of the counties. So the national character at that point should be that it garners some certain voter populace from each of the counties in our country, Kenya. So it's not like centralized to only one region, so that when it looks at even the participation in the elections, such a party should have candidates from all over the country, but not from a single region. So my understanding would be that they are all over the country.
There are specific numbers. Have you interacted with, you would not know the specific numbers that are stipulated by law to constitute national character. You say that they should have members from all over. Do you know the numbers that are involved?
Unless I follow it from, as I said, the presidential candidate, that they require, for example, to garner the 2,000 votes for them to participate in a majority of the counties. So I'm expecting that they should then have such a margin. Historically, yes, I have seen the requirement in law that the winning candidate should again garner 25% in every county. So I wouldn't be able to predict or give the specific figure for that in law.
Okay. Yeah, it's different from the demands of the nominations for presidential candidates. They're different. But let us just take it a notch higher. Political parties are by law required to conduct primaries, primary elections. Kwa Kiswahili tunaziita, mchunjo. Kweli. Do you think that political party primaries are important in our electoral process?
Yes, and thank you, sir, for that question. The party primaries are the critical drivers of the final candidature. And they always seem to encourage political party democracy when they are done, and especially if they are done in a free and fair environment. Because ultimately, they are the ones that will give us candidates for the general election or even a by-election. So the political party primaries are very critical to the democratic process, especially in the electioning process.
And you say that they have to be free and fair because they determine the elections.
Yes.
According to you, are political party primaries separate from the election, or are they part of the election?
So it agonizes me when I look at the political party primaries, because they seem to be quite far off the electoral process, because many a times they are carried out by the political party themselves. And some of the political parties may not have the structures for such a process. They, yes, are critical to the overall process, but they are carried out far off. But I have seen in the Election Act that IEBC is allowed to conduct those primaries. How I wish that there was negotiation between parties to use IEBC for them to be more credible.
What I'm asking, sir, is at the critical level, the law provides for political party nominations as a precursor to the general election. I'm just asking, in your view, regardless of how well or badly they are undertaken by political parties, do you think political party nominations are a critical part of the election cycle?
Yes, the answer I gave is yes, it is a very critical element of the electoral cycle because it will give us the candidates for that political party. It is one evidence of parties adhering to political party democracy, their internal democracy. It is a process that in the end, even at times reduces the cost of elections by weeding out some of the contestants in the final election.
Thank you very much. Now, perhaps a couple more questions. If I look at Article 88 of the Constitution, and you have the Constitution there, but I'll just tell you what I'm referring to. The law says that commissioners of IEBC are required not to have stood. Yes. I think the Constitution would bar commissioners of IEBC from having participated as candidates in the preceding election.
Sir, I think this is simply because they want the commissioners not to be biased in their decision-making process. But that does not negate members of a political party to participate in the activities enshrined in Article 38 of the Constitution. But at the level of taking over an office, the members of IEBC should be seen to be non-partisan. But that's not to mean that they should be apolitical because they also have their rights.
What I would suggest to you, the Constitution does not bar you from being political. It says you don't qualify if you stood for election. And your answer is that the reason for that is because you're not supposed to be seen to be biased towards political activity. Is that so?
Yes, or seem to have influenced the process of your ascendance to that office.
Yes.
Yes.
And it's true that for you stood for nominations in 2017?
No, sir, I did not. I did not participate in the nomination in 2017.
Okay. That's all right. All the best. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kimuli. I'll now request Dr. F.S. Abdallah to ask you some questions.
Good morning, Doc.
Good morning, Dr. Hari.
Or should I say Professor? When it comes, celebrate it.
We'll be in the transition.
Right, thank you. Dr. Nganga, looking at your experience and qualification, I'm a bit confused as to why you would like to work at the IEBC. Maybe you could please enlighten this panel as to your justified reason on your application. You have already qualified where the application is concerned, but just wanted to clear the mind as with the background, the experience, the qualifications at 53 years old, why would you want to change your career?
Dr. Just as indicated by my moving from the university to the county government, I always have a desire to answer to pertinent problems within the society. And that's why I said that I also give back to the community. Having qualified so far, I realized that yes, I have done a lot of research, culminating with the final project on coronavirus. But I feel like I want to also be a solution to the Kenyan problem, especially on the electoral cycle. Because sometimes I agonize to see sometimes a disjointed commission where maybe members are not able to answer to the call of harmony in their functions. I also want to serve the people of Kenya in conducting peaceful elections where nobody feels defranchised. In my experience in the county government, I was able to work between the politicians who had their demands and still be able to function independently and give a solution after an amicable negotiation between the political class and the law. So I really would want that experience shared by the people of Kenya as I function as that commissioner who will bring in, or who will be a member of a commissioner to bring in peaceful elections. This time again, Dr. Ari, we are going into boundary delimitation session. This can be a very emotive question in Kenya coming shortly. I need a mind that is very stable, that is resilient. I remember I saw some of that function happening in Nakuru, and there was almost an altercation between a commissioner and the members. So I want to bring in sanity where, as far as possible, I can, in both the electoral process and the boundary delimitation process. Should there be a referendum, sir? I also would want to partake of that to ensure that the people of Kenya get the best out of the referendum question.
Yes, Doc, you have all the right to decide on your way forward. And of course, there's the saying, any fool can carry on, but a wise man knows how to shorten the sail at the right time. So maybe you, as you say, you are looking well ahead, and all the best, right? Now, as far back as the Krieger report, structural weaknesses in the relationship between the Commission and the Secretariat were identified as a key electoral management in Kenya. These issues do not seem to have been cured. What would you attribute to this set of affairs? And if appointed to the Commission, what will you do? Even in the Krieger report, they saw that there's been a problem between the Commission and the Secretariat. This doesn't seem to have cured because it's going on, like, heritage, yeah? Do you follow what I'm saying?
Yes, I have an experience in a similar situation, especially in county governments, where sometimes there's a conflict of laws between a CEC and a chief officer in a department, because the secretary to IEBC is the CEO. So he takes charge of the day-to-day functions of the commission. He implements the policies that are developed by the commission. He is subject to the oversight of the commission. And therefore, I don't understand where this conflict comes from, because the commission, from my expectation, just like I found when I was a member of the CEC, has its own remits. And this is the development of the strategy, the policy, and then give it to the Secretariat to implement, but play a role of oversight to see that, yes, the Secretariat is performing as per the guidance of the Commission. So what I see as a conflict there would be more of a personality difference than really a functional difference in law. And this is why at this point, the commissioners will be able to know their limits, and where they think the oversight strategy can be extended, they have a way of forming subcommittees to look into the aspects that are bringing disharmony in the whole of the commission, because they have the oversight law. And if there is, and God forbid, a local secretary general or CEO, they have all the instruments to rein discipline on such individuals. So I think it's more of the two parties playing within their limits.
Yes, Doc, I understand and I follow what you're saying. But the issue is, yes, there is set down code of conduct and every law is required. The issue, it's not working. What contributes to this? What attributes these differences for? Maybe in my opinion, is maybe procurement, maybe other, things which relates to monies. We've been reading it. You have been reading it. Let's call a spade. Yes, I agree that the setup law, the regulation, the SOPs, the TORs are there. They're documented. Then from the Krieger's time till now, it doesn't seem to change. Are you capable of changing this as a researcher?
Dr. Thank you for that. Yes, because as I said once again, when you play within your space, you surely will bring in harmony. The issue of interest, especially monetary, is emotive in Kenya, or sometimes it is perceived, because like listening to what's happening in the LSK, you see that perception in there. Sometimes you don't know whether this is true or not. But I know, yes, there could be interest. For me, when I was at that position, I could see a similar scenario where contractors would come and they want their solution to rate payment solved at my desk. And I would tell them, yes, I have the oversight law, but the function of payment rests squarely on my chief officer. So yes, you bring in policies. So I think at this point, this is the personality differences between the individuals who are each playing a role. I wish to play that role that will bring sanity, where the commission plays its space and gives the secretariat their functional roles.
Right. You just talked about your chief of staff, or your chief in charge of the finances. That's what you're saying, right? Now tell us, who's the accounting officer of the IEBC and what are the duties of the accounting officer?
The accounting officer of IEBC is the commission secretary. And the commission secretary is in charge, as I said, of the day-to-day functionalities. He is the one who is in charge of all the staff. He's a communicator. He communicates between himself and the commission and the staff. He's supposed to prepare budgetary estimates at the end of an election, at the end of a financial year, and deputate to the commission for one month transmission. He is supposed with the commission to implement the structure, the HLM structure of the commission. He is supposed to oversee functions of the commission, such as the electoral process. He's supposed, therefore, to do such sensitive processes as voter education, voter registration, voter register verification, procurement for essentials, including the electronic systems, and such functions that may be vested on the Constitution, on him by the Constitution or any written law.
Thank you, Doc. Perfect. Thank you, Doc. For the benefit of all, we were just talking about the SOPs. Everything is documented. This is very well documented, what you told me. I'm just saying there's section 10, subsection